So first of all, thank you for coming over here. And so this panel today we have 3 telecom, 1 utility, and 1 bank. 4 telecom, right? 4 telecom, 1 utility, and 1 bank. And so to show you how this interaction about the large corporate, not just one single thing. Large corporate could be different, but I think that we have 6 companies over here that are looking at doing something with startups. They already are doing a lot of things with startups. So my first question will be, what are you doing with startups today? Again, assuming that you are a startup, and assuming that you want to work with a large corporate, assuming that there are not single point of entry, there are different units doing different things. If you are an early stage startup, if you are a later stage startup. So first of all, what is your corporate approach? Let me start from Gustavo. Gustavo is director of BBVA Innovation Center and Open Innovation. Gustavo, what's the BBVA approach, the approach of this Spanish bank to startup?
Thank you. Yes, I have to say we address innovation through an open innovation model, and that's pretty much basically that we know that we cannot do innovation alone by ourselves. So you've described a relation between startups and big corps like something very complex. It's true, and when you do open innovation, you have to deal with different stakeholders. Not just startups, we also try to, let's say, stay closer to ideas and talents wherever they come from. So we have to deal, of course, with our own talent, with employees, also with customers, with startups, with developers. There's huge talent and ideas everywhere, I would say. And these different stakeholders are quite different. I'm an entrepreneur myself, and I remember in my days as an entrepreneur, I won't ever really think about getting closer to a big corporation. So it's very difficult. We have complex organizations, charts, and so it's let's say we big corporations, we have to go where startups are, where entrepreneurs are, and developers are, and we have to share something that they can deal with. So it should be a win-win situation. We have to make sure that we offer some means to help them develop their own propositions, and they are definitely going to share their talent and ideas. So what we do, we have a startup competition called BBVA Open Talent. In fact, it's open right now. It's until June 10th. So last year, we received around 900 startups applying to this startup competition. We have 6 winners there in 2 different categories. It's a global initiative, so it's you can apply wherever you come from, and the winners also go for a week of acceleration in New York. We do that. We've done a dataton developing an API in which we exposed credit card transactional data, and developers build their own apps. So we do many things, and I'm sure that we are going to have some time to talk about that.
That's good. So let's stay in Spain. Javier Placier, Director of Open Future in Telefónica. Open Future, after the reorganization, is the new umbrella that is. Can you give us some hints about which is the Telefónica approach to the startup world? What are the different initiatives inside the Telefónica, starting from the accelerators up to corporate ventures?
Yeah, I believe that that's the whole point, as Gustavo was mentioning. For a telco company, it's even more difficult because at the end of the day, if you think about the startup world and technology, there is always a point where the value that a startup can add always has connectivity. So from our point of view, we have to have an open window to add value to a startup wherever they are at the seed stage, wherever they are at the growth stage, wherever they are in Silicon Valley or they are in Colombia. From that point of view, in Telefónica, what we have developed is a program that touches all those points and reaches, from the geographical point of view, the most countries and ecosystems that we can think about. We call it Telefónica Open Future. It's open because it's open to partners. I mean, we believe in Telefónica exactly the same philosophy. There is no way that somebody can develop only from the inside the innovation that is needed to compete in our industry. The competition is huge. I mean, this is a fact only in Europe, and this is only one of our main markets. There are another 198 telecom operators. So being able to succeed using startups and innovation coming from them is very difficult. Therefore, we have to attack that problem from any point of view. Meaning, we have programs that go from schools to universities to accelerators. Everybody knows Waira. We have what I believe right now is the largest venture capital in technology network of funds in emerging markets. And we are developing new ways of approaching this problem of venture capital, because we have the typical venture capital fund. We already have in Telefónica Ventures that has been doing acquisitions for almost 20 years right now. But we believe that as well, the best way to approach venture capital is by using all the tools, the network effect, which means that at the end of the day, the best asset manager for venture capital will be a professional asset manager. So we developed the American network, which what we did was, together with the European Union and other governments, is to create venture capital, technological venture capital funds in each of the countries that we believed were going to give us an advantage. And right now we have already, through Waira, 350 companies, startups that we have participation on. Which is more important is the 25,000 companies that presented projects to Waira, which I believe that now this is something that we have to bridge that gap from the point of view of being able to collaborate with other institutions, corporates, governments, and being able to give all those 25,000 companies a way to develop those projects. In America, we already have 40 companies that we are invested in. Relevant from the point of view of the point of view of being able to leverage that is that those companies are already generating 50 million euros in sales, in revenues. So from the point of view of procurement and governments and that kind of help, I think it's very important to take that into account as well. So that the answer is we're trying to do everything that needs to be done in order to approach this problem, which is, is very difficult. But open innovation means being open to being able to move all those tools for Telefónica and for the society at the end of the day, because governments are very important for us from that point of view, from the regulation point of view and from the financial point of view.
Okay, thank you. Let's stay in the telecom world and move to France. Alexia Froudkine is the Director of Developer Marketing Alliance for Orange. Can you draw a map of Orange if you are a startup, what you are to look at into the Orange galaxies,
Okay, so the Orange Galaxy, it's pretty much 32 countries in Europe and Africa mainly, and of course 220 territories all over the world with our Orange Business Services arm. So I would say that for Orange as a corporate, it's the way to, of course, manage open innovation, as my colleagues have already said, so it's very similar. So within Orange, it's been 10 years now that we have a developer program. It's called Orange Partners. So we are effectively working with, content providers, startups, corporation, and of course, transforming the way we develop our own services by opening our platforms, providing APIs to the ecosystem. So this is one of the important arms of open innovation. The second being, of course, to have organized ourselves, I would say, to be able to provide a privileged entry point to the startup ecosystem. So all the teams have been federating in an organization called the Orange Startup Ecosystem. It sits really into our marketing and innovation division. So therefore, we want to really make sure that we can facilitate the link between startups and our different business units. Because as you said, Alberto, the challenge is that, it's each market is different. So we need to take into account also the local specificities and expectation of our business units. And we want to make sure that we can facilitate the the link between our customers and startup, because at the end of the day, doing open innovation for a telco, it's to add value on top of our assets, which are our networks, and therefore it's also to please and provide value to our customers. So we have services that, of course, we have our acceleration program. It's called the Orange Fab. It's run in 5 countries, so not only our footprint, but we also look at other innovation territories. You have a lot of innovation coming from Asia, so we have a hub in Asia. We have one opening soon in Israel and one in the Silicon Valley. On top of that, we have a fab acceleration in France and Poland. And we really also want to help startups running on new territories, because you hear a lot about cloud, IoT, big data, etc. So we, for example, developed an offer for IoT startups to help them, let's say, integrate connectivity items into their objects, distribute them. So we help them distribute their IoT object into 19 countries all over the world where we have online channels. And for example, we also want to bring what large corporations have at the service of startups. So in this IoT topic, for example, we are bringing startups to Asia to help them maybe find the right manufacturer, help them with our own sourcing teams to also do a kind of supply chain and control and quality control of the connected object they are developing. That's another initiative. So on top of everything, my other colleague will talk around ventures and financing. It's also around other services a large corporation can bring at each step of the life of a startup. Whenever it comes to prototyping an idea, we can help, and not only for us, we also work with our large corporations. So we have on our Smart Cities program some startups that are collaborating also with big cities in France and large accounts. And we also have, so specifically in France, a community of 45,000 customers. It's called the Lab Orange. And we have developed a service to help startups willing to test their application with real customers, because when you're a startup, you may not have the ability to do some market research, or you're doing some testing with your friends and family, so people that may be very, I would say, similar to who you are. So it's important to also maybe target some different customer segments. So we want to really help also in sharing market knowledge and bringing, yes, value in mentoring, helping startups, not only with money, but also services and the skills of people at Orange, where there are technical ones or marketing ones.
Yeah. So I think that's just the list of all these initiatives that are around in just one corporate. Tell you how it's complicated. On the one hand is the land of opportunities. On the one hand, on the other hand is really complicated for startups just to target, could be the best initiative that better fit with what you need. So let's move to Germany, and Axel, we have him here, Axel Menneking. It is the head of Raum International, Deutsche Telekom. So just to make life to a startup a bit easier, so assuming that you are early stage or late stage startup, and which is the entry door for this startup to the Deutsche Telekom group? Assuming there is an entry door for the stage of development, there is an entry door for specific geographies. What's the Deutsche Telekom approach?
So depending on what you're looking for as a startup, if you're looking for funding or if you're looking for commercial partnering, we have different brands or different initiatives. For early stage startups, we have Raum, which does 2 things: seed investments up to 300,000 euros, or acceleration of those startups, helping them to build a product or to do business development into Deutsche Telekom. So that's for early stage startups. Before A round, not operator grade, most of the time pre-revenue. If you're later stage, there are 2 options. Either if you're looking for funding for a corporate investor, you go to T Ventures, which is the corporate venture arm of Deutsche Telekom. which does minority investments, usually somewhere around a B round, so multi-million investments. Or if you're looking for a commercial partnership, you go to a partnering unit and they do commercial partnering contracts, facilitate the interaction between the business units and the startups. There's no funding with that, but facilitating the commercial partnerships. And examples for that is larger companies like Spotify or Groupon, where these kind of partnerships are facilitated by them. So that's our landscape.
Thank you. Salvo. So Salvo Mizzi, Telecom Italia, you are playing home, so you know. So you have done in the last year, I think, a real good experience with the working capital program in terms of dealing with early stage startups and helping them to enter the vendor list of Telecom Italia, and now you're experimenting a lot of things. Can you tell a bit us about the Telecom Italia approach and specifically about what you experienced in the last year with working capital?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. And we started in 2009 with the working capital program, and today we run 4 accelerators across Italy, located in Milan, Bologna, Rome, and Sicily. And there is actually running a call for grant. We will choose very fast the class 2014. We are looking for 40 teams, 40 startups, to give them 40 grants in order to support them in the next steps. The cycle of innovation in our approach is not casually under the umbrella of digital markets development. We are looking for a kind of easy, agile approach to open innovation. In the same way, our colleagues all over Europe are trying to search and define. Because I believe that we understood that you can produce innovation in a new way, and for sure our model at the moment is clearly inspired by a US American model. The model is very simple. You have to put together talents, ideas, capital, and trust under a simple umbrella, and you have to put around the table different kind of experience. That's what we try to do in the last years, in the last 5 years. And the cycle is already expanded even to the next level, because starting from this year, we add to the accelerator and the grant program also the corporate venture capital that we'll see later in the next panel. It's a seed investment program. The most important experience in our journey, for sure, is the so-called Albo Veloce. It is the procurement, the fast track, because our winners, let's say, become suppliers of Telecom Italia and start to work with us, start to produce revenues and to understand what is go-to-market, what is to start, to compete and to work. In the structure of the fast track of the Albo Veloce is incentivized from the internal side with a specific budget. And that's why the first contract our business line will do with our VUCAP startups is let's say, subsidized with a coverage of half of the amount of the first contract. Last year, we closed 10 contracts inside the Albo Veloce, and I see that this kind of approach is very, very easy. It's, after all, a kind of... it's a way to produce savings even more, and in Italy right now is is quite. I think the general procurement of public administration is going to assume the same way and the same approach. I think it's very important to foster innovation even more.
Yes, as I said, £1 of procurement is worth £10 of investment. As a startup, I would take them both, but still. So let's move out for a while from the telecom world and enter a total different industry. We have here Carlo Papa, that is the CIO of Chief Information Officer of Enel Green Power. Carlo, what's the experience of an utility company, or is strictly focused on new technologies with the startup world? What are you doing over there?
Okay, let me give you just a couple of ideas about what's the difference between telecom space and utilities. Just roughly, I mean, we are one of the 5 biggest renewable companies in the world. We are traditionally in an industry that invests less than 1% in R&D of the sales, and Enel Green Power stays more or less in this range. And we do have application and investment that from the very beginning cost 10,000 or 1 million times more than a Nest thermostat. So, I mean, you know that the Nest thermostat is $249 plus delivery. If I start a project, it will not cost never less than $300,000 and can cost 255 million euros. So, we do produce electricity, so for producing electricity, the size of anything you use is going to be very expensive. This to plot us it's a different environment, and in terms of times, of space that you need for developing those type of solutions or machines, it's much different from a software or anything you can imagine in the, let's say, new telecommunication space. Now, as Enel Green Power, we are only in what you show as a roadmap that says procurement, investment, and acquisition. As Enel Green Power, we are only in the procurement space. At the group level in Enel, we are in the investment and acquisition mood, and my colleagues here in the second panel would talk about that. So I will talk just about what Enel Green Power does. That is procurement. We call it more sophisticatedly technology partnership agreement. And the name of the game is you come to us with a solution. We look at the solution, we run our due diligence, we eventually buy the solution at a price that has no margin, just at the cost that you have to produce the solution, and we sit together and we test the solution in a real environment. So if you invented a coating for avoiding ice to be formed in the blade of a windmill in wintertime, it looks a joke, but you can lose up to $58 million per year if you have a big portfolio, so it's not trivial. We buy the coating. We sit together in Romania and Sicily, whatever the ice is formed for 4 months in winter time, and we look at the solution, how it works. If the solution proved to be right in a real environment, so where we produce electricity, we buy even more within the frame of the technology partnership agreement. So if we have tested it in a park in Spain, we will test in 10 parks from Chile to Romania. If those things prove to be right, we clear the product from our engineering and procurement department. So it goes straight to our building activities. You were talking about entry point. I think we have a pretty unique, I would not say innovative way to approach startups, all this environment, because I think we are the only utilities company, broadly speaking, or renewable company worldwide that has a crowdsourcing website. So whenever you know our CEO, you know me, or you don't know anyone, whether you are in China, in Chile, or in Romania, you can go on our website, look at which are our technologies challenges. Very simple, ice in the blade. We want to produce electricity using the sea strength. Very simple challenge, very, let's say, clearly stated rather than simple. And you can profile yourself on our platform, and you can place your idea. Obviously, you will have non-disclosure agreement in place, and we will take from there. So let's say we took the same approach we have been running our power plants. My colleagues last night, where we were all sleeping or enjoying our dinner, they were working on monitoring wind parks, and not solar plant because they don't work, but geothermal, wind, and all the other stuff we are up there. So our innovation shop is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and no matter who you are, we will consider your idea. Obviously, it's not like, it's not simple ideas. How to use the strength of this water out there is not really something that we can invent overnight. So it needs effort. Another way we use the platform is to profile people. Most of the time, the ideas are not exactly what we need. For example, people have worked a lot in the last 10 years on forecasting solar production. We don't care because when you forecast solar production for the day-ahead market, and our Spanish colleagues knows that is an issue forecasting renewables production for the day after. For the solar, normally the mistake that is made is between 1% and 2%. So you are supposed to produce something, you are in the range of 1 or 2%. For the wind, is 14 to 50% mistake. So in Spain, it does change a lot if you produce 50% of the energy of the country or 60% of the energy of the country. So what we do, we profile the team or the professor or whoever it is that has knowledge in solar, and we tell them, look, your ideas, your skills are fantastic. Why don't you apply your skills to something that is similar when we can leverage on that? So technology partnership agreement every day of the year, no, let's say, contest or whatever, and really hands-on approach to this problem. We have a death rate in our space of above 99% because in startups, because you can have a good idea, great idea, but since we are talking about capital-intensive industry, so just for buying the materials, for setting up a labs, it's not a laptop and a desk. It's much more, let's say, capital-intensive. So the drop rate, the death rate is very big. That's it.
Thank you, Carlo. So now we got, let's say, we taste the water, and so what you're doing again. Now I would like to spend the rest of the panel just to providing some example of some interaction you have had with some startups, different level. It could be incubated, could be accelerated, could be invested. Can you tell me one story each about what you've done, just to provide real examples of what had happened in your corporate and how it worked and what did not work exactly. So let me start from the silent partner at this point. This is Telmo Perez. He's Vice President of France Telecom Group.
Okay, thank
Telmo,
you.
tell me one of the best orange story you can.
Yes, I'm going to tell you two stories, okay?
Two stories, okay.
Yeah, but in a more mature stage, we focus, let's say, apart from the network effect or how we impact the ecosystem. For us, it's very important also to see what is the value creation we can get from the startup and the startup can get from us as well. So for that, I'm talking about our, let's say, ventures unit. We have split that into core verticals we want to invest, and these would be startups that are going to really work with us. Otherwise, we allocate some money in other funds to invest on some other verticals that Jackie will give a brief later on. So regarding that, in our case, most of the investments we do are on companies that are already working with us, even if startups. And in fact, most of the investments are sponsored by a business unit. Okay, so for example, we got and we are quite flexible in terms of minority stakes, and even the amount of money. We got investments from 5 million to 150. Okay. So, for example, in Deezer, the music streaming company as Spotify, we took a minority stake of around 10-15%, decreasing after the rounds. And for example, when we created an offer for our mobile customers in France, they get more than a million new customers for their streaming service, the freemium one, but most of them, let's say, then switch on to the paid one. And for them, it was like a scaling up. In fact, this example and the other one and we can tell that we are lucky that in our small portfolio there are two companies, European companies, in a way, in their way to become unicorns. One is this, as I said, and for example, we don't let's say influence the management. For example, in France, we are the partner. Orange is the partner of choice of Deezer, but in Belgium, for example, they went with Belgacom, even if we compete in Belgium as well. And then the other one, for example, would be, and it's not such a nice story, and that's the reason why I want to tell it as well.
So.
Yeah, no, it's Dailymotion, which is the online video portal, which is, well, let's say, after the acquisition has become the number 2 online portal worldwide with more than 120 million users every month. But for example, in this case, the way we found to scale them up, it was to find a partner for them, especially in the US, where they are not competing so well. So, well, after, let's say, some scouting, finally we entered into negotiations with Yahoo, and in the end, with everything was, let's say, agreed. The Ministry of Economy of France stopped the operation. So in this company, we got the 100%. We helped them very much to scale. We have reinvested again to try to create a kind of another unicorn. But, it's been...
You just missed the exit, right?
Yeah, exactly. But
it was not your fault.
No, but we will do a better one, no problem.
Okay. Thank you. Javier?
Good and bad examples. There are a lot of those. But I was thinking about maybe let's start with the good one. The way it works, I'm listening to these stories, and I kind of feel like the real thing here is that it works because there is alchemy, because it works, not because you want to make it work. And we had a case which was just happened 4 months ago. We had two different companies invested in 2 different accelerators in 2 different batches at 2 different times in 2 wire academies. One was doing this kind of social funds following, social networks. The other company was doing a technology that was very effective on the use of the network for video streaming. There was another company that was invested by one of the American venture capital funds that was a specialist on digital marketing. And I could say that I was a genius. I didn't put them together. They saw each other through the Telefónica Open Future network. And at the end of the day, we ended up having one company invested by a third venture capital fund, independent from Telefónica, a UK one, that merged all these 3 companies, and now we have a fourth company that we have a stake on through 2 wire academies and an American fund, that as a matter of fact is now streaming live several global concerts around the world for several very important artists. And this happened between the first stake that we took in one of the wire companies and this final procurement deal happened from artists in less than 10 months. Should I have a business plan to make all these things happen? I'm sure it would have never happened. So that's what I'm saying. That I believe that things have to be fed. You have to give them the tools. You have to be hands-off up to a point. Of course, being Telefónica one of the artists, it happens to be one of the artists that Telefónica uses as a global brand for promotional purposes. But that gave access to other artists. That's where maybe big, large corporations can have an added value from the point of view of helping these things happen. But being in the position of thinking that you're going to make happen these things, I believe that they will never happen. Because these things happen because there's a natural generation of these kind of businesses. Bad view or a bad experience. Another company that we had a strange feeling, but that gives me a tip about how do startups look at big corporations. Was another deal that is huge right now. It's they are doing around. It was not a venture capital. It was an accelerator company. Right now the valuation is more than 150 million euros. That we tried to do an investment through the corporate venture capital arm of Telefónica. And in this case, it was funny that we tried to do both as well through the dependent investors, American fund approach. And it was funny to see the entrepreneurs, the startup, only wanting to have the large corporation invest in them and not having a professional investor being in the middle. That gives you, at the end of the day, a good idea. It's a good tip about how do startups look at big corporations, which is, what I'm listening around here, which is they want the procurement right away. They want to have, to be in the core business very fast and very quick, which is, I think it's a good approach, but it's a very difficult one. So that there's, we have a lot of experiences around the companies right now, and I think that there is not a wrong approach. The wrong approach is to be able to think that you're going to be able to make something happen in this environment. And I think that is the only thing you can do wrong.
I think it's pretty good example also to show that one of the biggest concern, talking about startup and corporates, large corporates, that then put them in bed together, perceived as a sort of weird things. And so that the fact that you can also be a platform that is open also to external investors, that is not limiting the possibility to the startup to scale up, I think is one important thing that we need to leverage if you want to attract the best. If not, the best would just look at you and say, okay, that's probably
that's the whole point. This is a talent business.
Exactly. Talent. Very good, thank you. Salvo, what's your best story to tell?
Well, yeah, it's a talent business. I agree, definitely. And it's quite a my favorite things sketchbook. So. My story is related to Eco4Cloud. It is a startup born in Italy, in the deep south, in Calabria, from university campus. And the team won one of Working Capital edition in the last year. And the idea is very simple. It's a kind of algorithm that manages data center energy consumption with a saving of around 25% in energy. And the idea is so simple, so impressive, and at the same time has no language barriers, so you can really scale up easily. We tested the software in our data center, and we confirmed the hypothesis, and the real saving in energy is, Carlo, we can talk later about. And the real saving is 25-30%. We are discussing internally how to push the solution also in Brazil, in the Team Brazil. And I think it's a good way in which you can show the story, because of course we closed the contract with our dedicated fast track, 200K for the first flight of operation. And now we are trying to support them with a round, with an international round, because we believe in this kind of story.
That's a great story. Gustavo, what's your?
Yeah, let me share one. It's a little bit different, just to complement what the rest are sharing. It's a startup that took part in BBVA Open Talent last year. It's from two guys in Uruguay. They develop a solution that is able to scan invoices and aggregate those invoices and then schedule the way to pay utilities and other services. So it's the interesting thing is that we started defining how to trial that product inside BBVA, and now they are scaling to Colombia, Mexico, and other countries. So it's a good way to see how big corporations, when you develop something that is really enriching our value proposition, it's very easy to use our footprint and some of the muscle that we have in terms of going to market to scale up. So it's a good. They were just two guys in their 20s developing a very, 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 let's say,
not crappy, but simple and straightforward solution, and then now it's really scaling and moving forward. So that's one of the examples, and the rest are we do have many other examples, of course, but we are very excited about the kind of outputs that we're receiving through the datatons and hackathons we do with developers. We are trying to share, as I said, something that is useful for developers to build their own digital products. In the last case it was, I said, the credit card transactional data, of course, aggregated and anonymized. And we got over 800 developers taking part and 143 apps submitted to that datathon later last year. So the quality is incredible. Some of the guys were developing the apps in weeks, just using their after work extra time when they were reaching home. So it's there's huge opportunity there, and we need to keep supporting and fostering innovation, definitely.
That's great. You know that there is a gigantic curiosity about the simple acquisition from BBVA, but we'll keep it for another matching event, right? That was the agreement, so you know. And Axel, what's your best story?
So I like to say, first of all, it's just the beginning. And what I experienced with all my colleagues who deal with startups and hook startups with Deutsche Telekom, it's on one side it's a change management job to convince an organization that was used to spend billions on own research and development to change that way of working and suddenly start accepting young startups or older startups on eye level and work with them like we do with IBM or Microsoft or I don't know, the large corporate. So that's one. It's a change management job. It's a tough job. On the other hand, what we experience, and I'm really open to you and to it's the business owners are under massive pressure in those days in the telco industry to get the numbers right. So every day they look for their revenues and their margins, and have a very short-term view on their business. So to break through this as well is also a huge challenge. And but there are some very good examples and some very good signs. I give you two examples. One for an early stage startup, one for a later stage startup. Early stage, one company that comes out of Hubraum and who is developing a technology for second screen applications or multi-screen applications across platforms, will be part now of the next generation TV platform of Deutsche Telekom. I think this is a nice example because it's not just a kind of low partnering, but it's a real technology plug-in into our ecosystem, which is, in my point of view, the most challenging one. The other example is Deutsche Telekom currently is building a so-called power plug, which is meant that above our access, partners shall be able to plug into our ecosystem, make use of our ID, make use of our payment, make use of the Deutsche Telekom's reach, and thereby enrich our access, but on the other hand, get access to revenues and to customers and revenues. And to name one example is Spotify, which is part of our tariffs. It could be also iSettle, but there are also many other companies which are less known. But the principle is hook on, plug into our power plug, and be part of our access and reach and make money with us.
Carlo.
Yes, one little story that helps me to say that we try to walk the talk about two things that we believe are very important in our business. One is openness and the other is convergence. We struck a deal 2 years ago with an Italian company that is producing a marine energy converter. And they were kind of surprised when in this technology partnership agreement framework, we didn't ask for exclusivity for the patent, neither we asked for exclusivity of the production. Not because we are Mother Teresa of Calcutta, but because we realized that when we buy a Vestas turbine today, there are at least 1 million of other people that buy the same turbine. And this is good for us. It's like when you go and buy a BMW or a Audi. You like that your boss has that car because it's very useful, it's cool, it's convenient, and blah, blah, blah. So for us, and this is may sound simple to all of you, but my industry in the last 80 years, starting from Edison, Mr. Edison, or other, let's say, commerce at that time, was looking at exclusivity.
Actually, it was a bit shocking.
For anything and everything. So this is when we try to walk the talk about openness. The other things is convergent and is as new in the business as the openness. We don't take equity investment apart from our corporate venture funds arm that stays at corporate level. So we do care about the financing of the company in terms, yes, we do the technology partnership agreement. Yes, we buy the product from you. Yes, we sit on a mountain or in the sea for 6 months. But will you be there in 6 months? So if the product is successful, will you have the money to build more product for us? So we look carefully at financing, although we don't intervene. And in which way we do this, as I said, we do believe in convergence. I always say that VC, corporate VC, and us, we do have convergence interest. They are happy if the company is successful because they make money. We make even more money if we buy marine energy converter that produce electricity. So we went, surprising a lot of people, we went as far as sharing our full due diligence, technical due diligence, with VC funds and investors. Now, this is still something that even in Palo Alto, talking with Clever Perkins to these people, it's astonishing. Because there are no people that are ready to take their due diligence that was presented to me, technical due diligence run by technicians, and given to venture capital funds. But we do think that as long as, until we don't create this type of convergences, because up to now there was the fancy sharing of PowerPoint presentation. Now you may understand an app for the iPhone or the iPad by a PowerPoint presentation. Trust me, it's very difficult to understand a marine energy converter from a PowerPoint presentation. So unless you don't give our friends of the bank a full due diligence saying, look, this thing is made in this way, this is the way of producing it, this is the purchasing, and blah, 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 they will never feel comfortable in investing in that machine or not. And in fact, guess what? If you look at Clever Perkins' portfolio, number of marine energy companies, 0. If you look at ABB Venture, number of marine energy company, 2 out of 20 investment. Very difficult business to understand for anyone. Much easier to understand if you have a big players that give you a technical due diligence and present to your board why they do believe in these technologies. So again, in our example, openness and convergence is the name of the game that we try to put in place.
This is a pretty good point, because one of the things that startups most care about dealing with large corporate is the typical.
But you see, you were talking in your presentation about collaboration.
Yeah.
Now, collaboration is something easy because it's like going out one night with your fiancé. We talk about conversion that means get married. Yeah. So it's but until you get married, you will never realize if your wife is the right one or not. So there's this chicken and eggs situation that you have to be able to put some sort of skin in the game. And I did make myself the presentation of this Italian bank. And I did play the venture capital as a professional back in the past. Now, I could see in the eyes of these people, they were not used to this type of collaboration. Let's say enhanced collaboration. Yeah. But I think especially in our business, unless we go down this model, there will be just not just a thermostat as a startup. So there will not be another Mr. Edison because of the money that is needed.
Okay, so time for the final takeaways. So I will ask you in 20 seconds each to provide, if any feedback, suggestion, final recommendation.
I'll take this. I think, Startup Europe, and we talked to your colleagues before, should play heavily the chord of collaboration, enhanced collaboration between finance people, people that can provide cash, final user. For example, I could imagine that Telecom was investing in energy efficiency, but it's clear that there are bridges that can be built between companies.
Thank you. Nothing to add to that. Maybe the government part, the regulation part, if you can help on that part as well, it will add to that part.
Okay.
We can start from sharing our, as corporate members or founders or what else, we can share projects, calls, startups, and cross procurement from now.
Yeah, well, that corporates need to be catalyst of the local ecosystem, but first they need to internalize another way of working with the startups.
I think for me the challenge is transformation for large corporations as we are, but also making sure that we transform what we do with startups.
I would add one for corporates. Open innovation is not that thing that does the guy without the tie or with the fancy thing on the hand. It's something that has to be dealt in a professional way. And for startups, keep trying, and let's see if we can have more more entrepreneurs, more scientists, instead of just football players and rock stars.
Okay.
So for me, it's all about creating value to the startups. So that's the most important thing, I think, for all of us if we want to work together. It's about creating value that keeps startups in Europe and not letting them go to the US or other regions. So that's the most important thing. And however we reach that, that's for me the ultimate goal.
Great. So the tag loud for this panel, there's plenty of keywords that probably could be put together. I think that they are around the concept of startups are different, early stage, later stage. You are doing different things, procurement, investment, acquisition, partnering, distribution most of the times. I wrote a word about open innovation, convergence, openness, and creating value. I think that on the larger corporate side, I think one of the biggest challenge we have in front of us as startup partnership, we have our partnerships to provide value to startups. And this is the only way we can convince the best startups to come, to sit around the table, and to identify a track to make them scale up, and not because we are the new mecenas of Europe, but because we have an interest in making this happen. Thank you very much, guys.